You know what? First of all, I must confess I'm extremely pleased to be with you today because I think it's a perfect mix between leaders, between practitioner, and also students. But before starting that, I must say, just to confess one thing with you is never ever follow Jeffrey Sachs, you know? Never. I should have known that, because not only Jeffrey Sachs is remarkably smart, he knows what he's talking about. I'll try to do the best also. But he is, have you seen, multitasking, right? So he has really put the standard very high. He's able to talk, he's smart, he's doing phone at the same time, and he will manage to take the train. So what I'll try to do, and he's a man, because normally that's only women who can do that. We all know that. So I try to keep the same level. At least I will try to talk and at the time walk a bit, right? So let's see if I manage this complexity. But I must confess, I'm not only pleased, but I also feel the need to be here with you. I'm not at all an expert in sustainability, but my colleagues and myself, we are right now totally overwhelmed by the world in which we operate. We are. I am. And I'm the Director General, I'm the CEO of the International Committee of the Red Cross, which is the international part of the Red Cross dealing with war, conflict, violence, extreme disaster. We're working in 84 countries, and what I would like is just to offer you some thought. I know I have 14 minutes to do that, 14, yes, but I just would like to offer you a few thoughts in order maybe to ask us the right question. Because if we want to build a global agenda for sustainability, I think one of the critical elements for us is to ask ourselves the right question, to challenge ourselves also in the way we look at the world and perceive it. So what do we see? And our perspective is coming from the fact that we are working in a very close proximity with people. We still have the ambition to provide humanitarian assistance to the people by ourselves, not through partner. We do that with people, with partner, but not through. Which means my people are not only in Baghdad, they are in Fallujah. Not only in Sana'a, you'll find them in Sada or in Aden. Not only in Damascus, but you'll find them also in Aleppo. International staff and national staff together. So what do we see? We see a few things I would like to share with you. The first thing is not a surprise for you, and we heard that from you, Yolanda, already, is a growing pressure on people affected by conflict, on poor people, a growing pressure. And the growing pressure is not maybe what is new. What is new is that pressure are multiple. They are multiple. So when you have an earthquake, at the same time it's normally happening in a country which is poor. When you have violence, you have also climate change. Right? And you see that everywhere. Yes, you can look at Syria through violence, through social problems, through health, but you can also look at Syria through climate problem, absolutely. And what I think is critical for us to grasp is we are not anymore living in a world where you have one issue or another issue. You have to deal constantly with and, one issue and, which means when we think about a global agenda, we have to be able to agree that it's not just one issue we try to solve. We're solving several at the same time, which makes it extremely difficult. And in my own organization, we had to totally change the way we approach it. The time is over when people are talking about emergency or development. I mean, when do you think emergencies start in Afghanistan? When is it finishing? Right? Tell me. So we have to be able to think about and. Right? That's what we have. Second issue I would like to share with you, we didn't speak about that, but if we think about the global agenda, and Jeffrey's hint into that is the fact that we are confronted right now with a total lack of international convergence at the political level. There is just no convergence at the political level today, at state level, to deal with conflict, but also global issue, economic, migration, climate change. And this is something which is a fact. We are transiting from a world order to another one, possibly, but right now it's a very messy world. Let's agree that. I don't want to be too negative, but the reality is today, being able to bring states together to agree And to implement what should be agreed is not an option, or very difficult. I can announce you already, and I hope I'm wrong, that the war in Syria will last. It will last. It will go on. It seems impossible. 4 years, and we all know that it's not only affecting Syrian people, but it's affecting the entire region, the entire social fabric of the region. And it will go on. It will go on at least for the next few years. No way right now to be able to have a real response from the Security Council. No way to bring different countries to agree of what could be a solution. Look at Ukraine. Look carefully about Nigeria. What will happen there? No way to today bring country to agree to a global solution. We just have to know that. And it's very, very visible when you work in the field. The third element I would like to mention with you, and I don't know how you feel about that, and it's difficult to capture in terms of metrics, but trust, which is so important for all our work. Trust is becoming a very rare commodity, very rare. Trust in institutions, we know that, but trust in people, trust in politicians, trust in solutions. And we feel it very strongly. Imagine I'm the boss of the Red Cross, and the Red Cross is something which is such a powerful brand. I feel it everywhere. People do not trust you because you're the Red Cross. This time is over. You have to demonstrate every day. It's a prove-it world. People can compare also, can judge. It's a very globalized and very fragmented world too. And I feel it very strongly. I give you one example, one anecdote which has struck me, but it gives you a bit of a sense. A year ago, some of my colleagues were in Somalia. We are working in Somalia. And Somalia was hit by a typhoon. This typhoon hit Somalia 4 days before, in fact, Philippines was hit. Other typhoon, other story. And when our colleague intervened, it took them almost 5 days to move from Mogadishu to the places where the typhoon hit the communities. 5 days was because we had to negotiate every single checkpoint. This is the way we do humanitarian. You don't impose humanitarian action. You negotiate with the people, with the groups. It took us 5 days. We arrived there, and there's a community of people. And the leader of the community, in this case, was a woman. I don't know if you know Somali women. I mean, they are really serious, right? Not only multitasking, but they know exactly what you should do or not. And she looks at my team, and she said, "You are late. You are late," you know, and 5 days crossing Somalia, taking the risk, this is the last thing they were expecting. And what they do, she had a mobile phone and says, 5 days to come, it took you 1 day to intervene in Philippines. And by the way, what are you bringing to us, this little hospital? In Philippines, much bigger. How come? We don't count Somali? You prefer Philippines? And it's interesting. What I mean by that is, it's a world which is globalized. It's a world where people, even in the most remote area, even in the weakest position, are comparing, judging, willing to know. And this is a great news on one hand, but very challenging for all of us. So trust, rare communities, being discussed, challenged by people, and rightly so. But let's be aware of that. So where does it lead us? It leads us to, and I would like to propose you a bit of options which goes beyond my own organization. But we're trying to test that in this very messy world. I think the first element is I think we have to be at the same time humble, and very stubborn. Why humble? Because I think it's a time where we need to know what are the limits of what we can do and not. It's very strong in my own world, which is a humanitarian world, where the tendency is to all bring together, to give always a sense that we can save the world. And the news is, no, we cannot. It's good to have the ambition, but it's also very good to be precise of what you can do, what you cannot do. But then, within the framework of what you can do, then you have to be stubborn. Then you have to stay. Then you cannot take no for granted. You have to move on. You have to push. You have to find solutions. Repeat again. So, humble and stubborn. The second point, and it's not a surprise, I've heard that already from Yolanda and some of you, and it's very strong in my environment, we have to move from an obsession about coordination. We all want to coordinate. We want to be more efficient, effective, and it's very good. We want to avoid gap, it's true, but we spend a lot of time talking about coordination. It's time to move from coordination to collaboration. I would even argue to co-creation, which means you have to agree to let it go. You possibly have to agree that some of the response provided by the people you work with are not the response that you would like. It's very complicated. It is complicated for an organization like mine who has a DNA to respond by itself. But it's time to be able to collaborate. And one of the reasons is because we have to adapt much faster to the people. People expect us to provide service which makes sense to them. As a humanitarian organization, the time that you can think and develop the response in Geneva or in St.Gallen or in New York and impose it on people, this time is over, including in emergency. You have to deploy service people which are able then to propose, foster a response which makes sense to this community. It's very complex, very challenging. And to be able to do that, you have to adapt, but you more and more have also to collaborate with others. You have to understand what's happening. I'll give you one example, which is health. The health sector is changing dramatically. And it will change dramatically the way we relate with our health. It's very clear. I'm of the opinion that in next 2 to 3 years, and this is for you students, think about that, in 2 and 3, 4 years maximum, we will remember, or we will know Google as a health organization. We will just forget that Google was a search engine and a communication. I'm ready to bet 4 years, Google will own quite a large part of the health system. Why? Because it's big data, because data and monitoring will be absolutely central to the way we connect with our health. So as an organization like mine, what I need to be able to do is to understand what's happening quickly in order to be able to integrate that in our response. Because in fact, the way people will relate to their health, to their doctors, will change dramatically. And we need to be able to understand that because it will affect people in Syria, Somalia, Congo much more quickly than what we think. So as an organization, being able to respond, to adapt, but also to connect, understand what the next coming years will be absolutely central. My third point, and maybe this is the most important point, humility, stubborn, collaboration, but I would say even more so, if there is one thing I would like you to leave with is we need to invest in proximity, in close proximity. If we want to build a global agenda for sustainability, I'm convinced that proximity is central. Policies are important, but face-to-face is even more important. The fact that we are able to sit together, talk, engage, it's central. And what I see over the next coming years is a world which is on one hand very connected, but also shrinking, in a sense that there are entire part of the world which will be more and more off-grid. Look at Sahel. You remember Sahel? Some of us went to do meditation, walking. You remember Paris-Dakar? It's interesting to look at that. One of the most interesting, racing sport events. It's the only sport event I know called Paris-Dakar now happening in Latin America. Interesting, no? Why? Because Latin America is much more safer today than Sahel. Sahel is off-limit. Off-limit. It is. From Mauritania to Somalia almost. Look at Nigeria. Nigeria, very rich country. Vivid, complex country. But at the same time, look, over the next coming 2 or 3 months, you will have a new caliphate in the northeast. And we will discover that the Nigerian government is not in a position anymore to control this part of the country. And it will affect Cameroon, Niger, and Chad heavily. Look at Libya. Libya has disappeared. Chaos, total. Look at Syria. Look at Iraq. Look at the social fabric in the Middle East. So this part of the world, which are so close to us, we have to be very careful that they don't go off the grid, off our interest, off the political interest, but also off the human interest. And I would argue that more important than ever, we need to maintain a human connection. We need to sit down. We need to invest in close proximity. That's the only way to be able to connect with people. And we need to engage the most difficult one. If we don't engage them, then no solution will happen to us. Thank you very much.